Hey guys, what's going on? DuffKing56 here, and we're back today. I'm going to bring you bonus episode 3 of our Final Fantasy XIII-2 Let's Play, and today we plan, or I plan at least, to talk about the Crystarium. Hopefully you guys get a little bit of a deeper tutorial into one of the more intricate points of the game. We're going to talk about character development, anywhere from types of statistics gained to optimum character development, some of the more nitty-gritty type topics that I'm looking forward to talking about today. So get pumped, strap in. I'm going to be using a couple different sources, from the guide to stuff that I looked up to anything, but basically everything you're going to see in front of you I've either made or taken pictures of. So enjoy, and let's get into it. Anyways, let's just talk about the Crystarium first in some sort of general light here. The Crystarium is basically, as you see in front of you, it's like a constellation. It's like a bunch of stars, except those stars are actually nodes. And you spend Crystarium points to go from node to node, and you get bonuses on certain nodes that are large, and you get big, large expansions, which means once you fill out one constellation, which, as you can see, are represented by the character's weapons, once you fill out one of those expansions, you'll expand, and you also get an expansion bonus. Now, there's 22 expansions in the game. There's 21 bonuses you can get because you don't get an expansion when you obviously start out. So it's going to be very important that you spend those in a certain way, and you'll see that you can tailor those to the characters that you're using, their strengths and their weaknesses. You want to build on your character's strengths, and you want to not avoid their weaknesses, but make your strong characters stronger. So if they're strong in a certain element, make them stronger in that, unless you want to challenge yourself. And then I will talk about that a little bit later when I'm talking about reverse optimization. We talk about optimization in general. But anyways, for each of the roles, Commando, Ravager, Sentinel, Saboteur, Synergist, and Medic, there are 99 levels. There's only 98 achievable because you start out at 1 once you get the role. But you all want to level them in different ways, and they give your characters different bonuses here. I am looking at the stat gains for the certain characters here, and there's sort of attribute values for each of the strength and magic gains for the different roles. And if you're looking at sort of who has a greater affinity for a certain strength or magic, whether it's Noel or Sarah, I'm going to talk about that now with the classes. If we look at the proficiency, I'll be popping up a chart there on the screen. If we're looking at the Commando role, Sarah's proficiency in it, that's how well she would do in that role, is fairly medium. And this is because she actually gets a fair amount of strength when you're done leveling her up. But Noel is very high. He has much more strength than Sarah if you optimize it in a certain way after you just the raw stat gains. I'll talk about that as well. If you're looking at Ravager, it's the exact opposite. Sarah's high proficiency and Noel's medium proficiency. And that's very interesting because you would think one would be high and one would be low, one would be low and one would be high, but if you actually think about the combat in the game, the damage output, you'd want medium. Your main class is really to be medium proficiency when it's your weak class. So if I were to run some sort of relentless assault with Noel at the Ravager and Sarah at the Commando for some sort of reason, then you'd still want Noel to be a semi-strong Ravager, and you still want Sarah to be a semi-strong Commando. So it's not a low proficiency pairing, it's a medium, which will offer you a lot better chance in combat, since the combat's difficult enough as it is when you're not leveled up much higher than your enemies. So let's talk about the Sentinel. Both of them are medium in it. It kind of depends on who you want where, and it depends on sort of what you're going on with the class, but they're both medium, so that's fairly an interesting point. And we're also going to look now at the Saboteur Synergist, which are also flip-flops of themselves. So now we have Sarah as a high proficiency Saboteur and Noel as a low proficiency Saboteur. So we obviously know who we're going to be building those stats into, not only first, but earlier in the game, and who we're going to be using as a Saboteur more, because those stat bonuses from Saboteur affect the party greater. And if we look at Synergist, it's once again a flip-flop. So Sarah's a low proficiency Synergist and Noel is a high proficiency Synergist. So once again, talking about who we want in our party as a Sab-Syn sort of pair, you'd want Sarah as your Saboteur and Noel as your Synergist, because you want a high pairing. You don't want a low pairing. But if you pair them both together, whether it's Sab-Syn, depending on what you're going for, who your monster familiar is, which we'll get into much later in the bonus content. It all plays into what your personal preferences for the playstyle, but just talking about raw statistics here, you got your high, low for Synergist, your Noel's your high, and Sarah's your low. So if we're looking at Medic now, this almost is sort of counterintuitive because here Sarah's a medium proficiency and Noel is a high proficiency. You would think that this medicinal sort of element would be more magic based in the game, and you'd think that would play towards more of Sarah's side, but actually it's not. It's more medium. So Noel's your better medic. I believe he learns better skills anyway, but there are also better medic pairs, pets really, to have on your side as a medic rather than just the actual characters, Sarah and Noel. So, but if we're looking at total stat gains now, so this is how we're going to sort of come together now. Now, just raw stat gains without any sort of roll bonuses or skill bonuses you get, you're looking at strength, your total raw strength you'll get from levels 1 to 99 total in the Crystarium. You get 375 strength for Sarah and 520 strength for Noel. So it obviously makes sense that Noel's more of a commando type, brute force sort of strength character. And the magic is obviously flip-flop, but kind of a little bit differently. Sarah's a little bit gimped in the magic. She's not 520. She's 460 magic, and Noel's 375 magic raw. So if you think about it, you're going to really need to optimize Sarah's magic in a very, very positive way, or else she might be gimped at least a little bit later in the game. And now if we're just looking at total hit points, Sarah, obviously you'd think the more magic user probably won't be in the thick of combat as much. She's 6,250 hit points raw, and Noel's 8,200. So you, obviously, once again, you can see the contrast, the difference that you have. The more strength-based rolls obviously going to have more HP because they're going to need to tank some more damage than a magic sort of passive fighter like a mage would need less HP. You'd focus that more into magic, although it doesn't actually play out like that. You can have them both. Like I said, they're very interchangeable. It all depends on how you optimize them and how you want them to be. But let's actually talk about these roll bonuses that I've been hinting at. Now, these roll bonuses you will get from large nodes. So when you select on the Crystarium these large nodes, they're much bigger than the small ones. You get certain roll bonuses depending on which class you're giving the large node. So I'm going to throw another chart on there for you guys. Depending on the role, you have different bonuses, as you can see right now. The role Commando, every time you get a large node in your Commando class, you get +2 strength. Every time you get a large node in Ravager, you get +2 magic, which is obviously makes sense now. Sentinel is another obvious role bonus. You get +6 HP when you get a large node, and you want that to be like that because Sentinels are your tanks. They're going to be taking your most damage. You're going to be blocking a lot of damage from you, so you want them to be high health, high defense, and other things of that nature. Now, if you look at Saboteur, you have +2 strength on even levels with the odd nodes, or with the large nodes, and you get +2 magic on odd levels. So I think it's much more of a magic-based sort of class. Now, the Synergist role, +6 HP on even levels and +2 magic on odd levels, which is an interesting paradigm because it almost seems like you'd want more, I don't know, well, I mean, if you're going for more of an HP character, which you really don't need to, I'll talk about that as well, you really don't need to do HP, so Synergist, unless you're going for the magic on the odd levels, is really something you don't want to grit those large nodes on when you're on your even levels. And Medic, obviously, 6 HP per large node, which actually could be fairly helpful if you want a really, really bulky sort of role layout, character layout. But if not, you might want to keep thinking about that. But if you honestly think about it, we'll get into the items later, but if you just focus on strength and magic, just Commando and Ravager, getting the +2 strength, +2 magic for your certain characters, this is called optimization. So if you optimize someone like Noel, you'd want to give him all the Commando large nodes, and you'd want to make sure that you do everything to just max that strength. Get that strength as high as you can. And opposite, obviously, with Sarah, you want that magic to be buffed really high. And if you optimize them correctly, HP really doesn't matter because we have items that will alter HP in a positive way. You can get items, these are called bangles, and these bangles will give you anywhere from 150 to 500, I believe, hit points. So if you think about it, you really want to build your characters so that you have some sort of more of a power base. So it's either a power insofar that it's strength or a power insofar that is magic. So let's actually talk about the specific characters. If we're looking at Sarah's optimum Crystarium development, I'm going to read this actually right out of the guide. Sarah's best role are Saboteur, Ravager, Medic, and Commando, and she's more naturally inclined towards magic than strength, obviously, as we were talking about before. These characteristics complement each other well. Coupled with her speed, high magic will serve to further enhance each of her favored roles. For this reason, it's best to pour most, if not all, of her role bonuses in the stat. Now, I haven't actually been watching this carefully when I've been leveling in Crystarium. I might actually start doing that now, because as you'll see in the end, I'll show you guys a chart where if you optimize them, you can really, really maximize their magic and strength. So, if we're just sort of looking at Sarah, we gotta optimize her. And if we optimize her, her final stats will probably end up being anywhere from 6,619 hit points, 402 strength, 880 magic. So as you can see, we're building into magic very much so. And those are actually fairly good stats if we're looking at them. You want to get them obviously as fast as you can, but if you're optimizing it correctly, then you don't really have to worry about sort of being a weaker character relative to characters who aren't optimizing in that point in the game, because you'll obviously have more power in your strength rolls. And I won't show you actually how they tell you to get your actual levels, but it has all the roll bonuses played out here. It's actually a very nice chart. I'm sure you can access it anywhere else on the internet because it was pretty easy to find, even if I didn't have this book. But it's very interesting to see. It really is, to see how you have to optimize your characters. Now let's actually talk about Noel. And I'm going to read this once again out of his Optimum Crystarium development. This is right out of the guide here. Noel is quite clearly an excellent commando, but it will also be to your advantage to level up his medic role and learn the all-useful, all-target healing spells that Sarah lacks. So obviously now we see why he's more of a high proficiency medic, because he has skills like Curasa and Isuna, or Isunas. There's one that is area, and you can get Isuna, but we'll see that later, and that will actually take away buffs and negative status ailments. But anyways, Noel is also primed to be your main defensive synergist. Finally, his Ravager development should not be neglected. You'll want to improve his chain building abilities as often as you can, as he lacks Sarah's natural alacrity. So they suggest that you get those 4 roles in tandem with each other. So obviously you want to focus on commando, but you want to optimize it as much as you can as you're going through the process here. And they also recommend that you up his accessory capacity as soon as possible so you can give him some better items to boost him. But after your optimization, your final statistics should be anywhere around 8,550 hit points, 851 strength, and 509 magic. And as you can see, Noel has a little bit less strength, but a little bit more magic than Sarah. But as you see, you still want to build that Ravager roll for Noel. And it would obviously help him in the end, especially if you do medic as well. You'll get a little bit more hit points. As you can see, it's almost 2,000 difference if I am not mistaken. Yeah, it's about 1,900 or so difference. Now, if you look at this last chart, we're going to talk about these weapons later. But if you look at these optimizations, you can see that, depending on how you optimize, you want to get on this early and often. You want to get those large node bonuses in the right roles, or else you'll have a lot of trouble at the end of the game. Even with the tougher enemies, once you max out your character, you're still going to have to do a lot of thinking and damage, and you're going to have a good strategy. But it always helps to have really high statistics on your characters so that you can sort of fall back on the fact that you have some more brute strength and you have the optimization under your belt that you can always refer back to and destroy your enemies with. And as you can see, it's very varied. It talks about ATB +1 weapons, link weapons, and it even talks about a 35% weapons reverse optimization, which is really cool actually. If you want to flip your characters around, then you have these optimizations. You can see Sarah has 937 strength, but 588 magic, and it's a flip-flop for Noel basically. So depending on, like I said, what you want to do, if you want to challenge yourself, go for that reverse optimization. It'd be kind of cool to actually see how that would play out. So you'd want to focus Noel on the Ravager more and Sarah on the Commando. But we might actually have another bonus content class on the actual roles themselves and the skills that they feature. But as for now, I think you guys have a little bit better picture of how this Crystarium thing works out, this whole constellation idea, these large nodes and optimization. And hopefully you've gained something from this a little bit more deeper than what I could explain when I'm actually doing this live commentary. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed bonus episode content 3. I mixed up all those words, but it's okay because this has been King 56. I will see you guys later. Have a great night. Peace out, guys. Bye.